Welcome to the live stream of consciousness. The live stream of consciousness is on a quest to unravel the mysteries of existence. Every episode, we ask the fundamental question, what is consciousness? Is consciousness merely a product of our brains, or does it connect us to something greater? Explore the very fabric of our thoughts. Don't miss a moment. Expand your awareness and tap into the boundless potential that resides within you. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness.
Yes, welcome to the live stream of consciousness. My favorite place to be. It is Thursday again. I was just thinking about how I have been doing this every Thursday for like 2-3 years now, and I it's like it just happens, and it's so great to have found this conduit to connect to you guys, to connect to the wonderful guests. I was saying how my show, the live stream, I feel like it was meant to bring the right person into my path, right? And then someday I'm going to have a guest that's going to have a profound effect on me. And then as I was saying it, I realized each guest, each conversation I have has a profound effect on me and you. And we all expand and we connect, and it's amazing. So hello everyone. It's good to see so many people out there ready for this and this community growing. I got to thank Debbie Romero for inviting me into her community and helping the universe provide me with a guest tonight. What happened was I've just been so busy. Everything's been great. And I just didn't realize I didn't have a guest booked for tonight until like Monday. And I started panicking. I tried to find someone, and then I just reached out actually yesterday to Debbie's group and said, hey, does anybody want to be a guest? And Debbie reached back out and she said, I've got the perfect people for you. So now I've got quite a few guests booked. Interesting. I mean, you guys know it's not always necessarily like a psychic medium, although I've had quite a few psychic mediums because I love talking to psychic mediums, but I have a few of them lined up. So I'm excited. The episode that I did with Debbie about what is the spirit realm, I guess, opened up a month of psychic mediums. So I'm excited. So again, I see everybody's out there ready to go. I know some people were actually telling me they're excited for tonight's episode. So perhaps you guys have heard of my next guest. And my next guest is a psychic medium. He calls himself an evidential psychic medium. So I am going to find out exactly what that means. And I'm going to welcome to the live stream of consciousness, Michael Christopher. How you doing, Michael?
Good, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's funny when I saw you just a couple of minutes ago, I was like, there's this thing that I do, or that happens to me, where I see my reflection, in whoever it is I'm talking to, whatever that little glimpse of connected vibration is. And here it's like you look a little younger than me with the, you don't have the salt and pepper, and
I've just been blessed. I'll be 55 in August. It just hasn't turned gray. This went by years ago, but I had to grow hair somewhere, so why not?
I've been blessed up here. You've been blessed down here. So awesome. But I definitely I watched a little bit of your readings on your YouTube channel, and I was definitely excited because we have a similar vibe, I think, which is just kind of like calm and quiet and not over the top, and but also solid. Right. I think that we're both pretty confident in who we are and not trying to prove anything or be anyone other than who we are.
And it's hard enough just being yourself.
It is hard enough just being yourself. So true. So Helen is saying she's only a psychic small. You got to start somewhere. I love that joke about psychic mediums, and they come in other sizes. So welcome to my show. I don't know if you've ever heard about it or seen it, but I love discussions about consciousness, about spirituality, about who we are, why we're here, that kind of stuff. And I know there's no simple answer. However, the one question I love to ask everybody. Seems daunting, but it's not. And the answer comes out 100% of the time. The answer comes right out and becomes a part of this bigger answer, right? And that question is, what the hell are we even talking about? What is consciousness?
You know, it's funny because within the last, I'd say 2 weeks, I've really been giving that a lot more thought. It's probably been more than just a couple weeks. But I thoroughly believe our consciousness is our soul and it's outside of our physical body. And I notice that when I pay attention to when I'm communicating with spirit, I try to feel where the energy is coming from, and it's not my head. You know, it always feels like it's like right in this area here.
Oh,
No, I mean, that's how I picture communication to work. Your soul, my soul merge, and it's got to go through here to get me to talk about it. So it's out here somewhere.
Right, totally. No, I like that it's a vibration, not physical, but it has to get in here for you to talk about. So this is almost like, I've heard people say this is our receiver, right? Our consciousness is the energy, but this is how we bring it into the three-dimensional world, right? Because we can then process it, we can communicate it on a limited basis. I've talked about this before. Language, although is amazing and beautiful and allows us to connect on such an amazing level, is really limited as far as like what it can express and what it can't really express. You know, I mean, it's hard to express a feeling, you know, that you have.
And they got their work cut out when they're dealing with me, because this is like, you know, it's like
trying to get through. Well, apparently they do. I also read a little bit about your story, which I'm excited to talk about, and maybe to help get us into the story. You're most of the mediums, and you said this on your webpage, that I've encountered, so probably you've encountered as well, you know, kind of knew about their gifts from a young age, and then later on kind of figured it out. You know, a lot of them spoke to, you know, the imaginary friends and that kind of thing, and then later was like, oh, that now it makes sense. Do you have a story or a moment that you can recall where you were suddenly like, wow, everything I knew about the world and the three dimensions is not all there is to know? There's something more than that.
Oh yeah, and it's a long story, but I promise I will condense it. So
we've got an hour, so
okay. So yeah, I was 45 when I had my first experience. Up until then, other than reading about mediums, that was my extent of my knowledge. But from 1997 through 2015, it was just like, what the hell's coming next? So I lost 2 of my brothers to complications from cystic fibrosis.
Oh, wow.
My brother Jason passed at 26. My brother Danny passed at 41 after going through 2 separate double lung transplants. In between that, I went through kidney failure, dialysis, and a kidney transplant.
Holy moly.
And then what really set things off in 2015, my sister was murdered. And that's, again, it's a long story, but that,
I would imagine,
after her passing, I had my first experience, and it was probably about a month after her passing. I got up to go to work. I know I was alone in my kitchen, and it felt like somebody just walked in the room. So I turned around and looked. Nobody was there. Felt the experience again, but this time in my mind, I saw my sister standing behind me, and I was like, what is happening? And in my mind, I saw her walk up to me, and she put her arms around me, and then she laid her head on my shoulder. But at the same time I was sitting in my head, I felt the energy, and I just freaked. I was like frozen because I was like, what is happening?
Right.
So again, long story short, I sought out a psychic, which I never thought I would do, to work on her case. One thing led to another, and it led me to a development class to figure out some things, and then it just got the ball rolling. And, you know, like you and I talked about before we jumped on, I was a skeptic, still am a skeptic. So it was kind of like, all right, I'll see what this is about out of curiosity. But you know how some people have a natural ability to music, sports. I'm never going to say spirit or communication is easy, but it came natural to me.
Wow.
You know, so that's a really condensed version of the chaos.
Sure. So I'm imagining the experience that you had with your sister. You know, that was real, right? Real enough to you to be like, okay, I need to know more about this. I'm gonna talk to a psychic medium. Um, and you said you were a skeptic. I guess that's kind of what I want to address. Like, were there other, besides the experience with your sister, which I'm sure was a big part of, like, okay, I'm not a skeptic anymore.
Yeah.
Were there other experiences that you were like, okay, that's real?
A lot of it came from when I was ill, and really facing my mortality and not really knowing what was going to go on. That's another big part where you start searching for answers. Is there more? And that's when I discovered John Edward on TV, and that was my first exposure to a medium. And I'm like, wow, which got me to reading books and stuff like that. And that alone gave me so much comfort, knowing that if I didn't survive what I was going through, that was my first conscious moment of having the thought that maybe there's something more beyond the physical world. But other than my sister's experience, I can look back and I can see where my intuition was there. And I was like, okay, that makes sense there.
Right.
But there were little subtle moments, nothing that really stands out, you know.
Right.
So
John, excuse me, John Edwards is pretty significant, actually. Hold on one second while I
yeah.
wet my whistle. Yeah, John Edwards. I can remember also seeing John Edwards for the first time, and I think what was kind of cool about John Edwards was there was not many in the mainstream, like, male psychic mediums, right? Or
Yeah.
people that kind of just look like somebody you knew, right? A psychic medium
Right.
always kind of had a flair to them or something, or it was just, it was very different landscape, I think, for psychic mediums. And I think all of the psychic mediums in my world right now will agree, and this has been talked about over and over, even yoga, you know what I mean? 10 years ago, you look in the yellow pages. Well, I guess 10 years ago, there weren't yellow pages, even 10 years ago. But when there were yellow pages, there wasn't a lot of yoga in there. There wasn't a lot of psychic mediums, and now, it's a lot more people are coming into their gifts. A lot more people are recognizing things like yoga as a way to really reconnect
Yeah.
to themselves. Yoga is I'm not a big athlete, right? So I never really got into working out, but yoga, when I did yoga, or when I do yoga, it's so, I feel so connected to my body and to myself, and like, oh, I'm really getting to know myself. Like, you're really, I guess that's the point, right, of yoga.
Yeah.
You concentrate on the energy and flowing through your body, and what it feels like and what it's doing. And I think it's so powerful. I'm hearing an odd sound there. I don't know what that. Oh, now I lost my train of thought. I was talking about yoga. I was talking about
the main John basically
John Edwards,
bringing.
right? We were
Yeah.
talking about John Edwards. So
Yeah.
John Edwards. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right.
John Edwards was, I think, very inspirational
Oh yeah.
to a lot of people to realize, the thing that I think most psychic mediums that I know today, one of the first things they do when they're in front of a group is they say, everybody can do this.
Yes.
Everybody has this innate ability. We've just been kind of, society has shaped us and pushed us down certain roads that are away from the certain, connecting
Oh
to
yeah.
certain energies and things that we have. And I think that's a whole other conversation. Obviously, I've been lightly tiptoeing around on my show because I like to keep things really positive, and there's like, that gets a little bit heavy. But the thing that I do like about that is this community is people who have kind of connected with some of those innate abilities. And even if they haven't connected with those abilities, they're aware of the existence of those abilities or the possibility of those abilities. And it has become more real.
Yes.
It has become a community. Everybody out there, I think, connects in some way to love. We were talking about that, right? And I think that's what makes this community so amazing is that's the foundation, is understanding that source energy is love. Unconditional love, like the best, most amazing kind of love. I talk to people who have had NDEs
Right.
on the show, and it's like the way they describe that place, that feeling, is like way beyond any sort of bliss, like the most accepting, calming, loving energy that they've ever experienced. And for me, that is what makes me get up every day with a smile on my face, knowing that, that's the foundation of everything. And all I need to do is acknowledge it and tap into it so that I can share it with others, right? And my day has been a success.
Yep. No,
um
100%.
yes, so I want to open up the floor to hold some space for you. I thought it was really interesting, when I was reading your bio, that you actually had a military career.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting because I think a lot of people don't expect a psychic medium to come out of that. They don't connect, a government official position, military kind of thing, to be open to that, right? But that's another thing that I love, is that a lot of
Yeah.
psychic mediums and people like yourself who have that kind of background are coming out and saying, wait a second, this is also a part of my reality.
Yeah.
uh, which makes it a lot easier for other people to be like, okay, so if he says it's okay, now maybe I can talk about it. And I love the fact that we can talk about it. So let's talk about that. So tell me about, um, your military experience. Not the whole story, but like kind of how that relates to your skepticism, I guess.
Yeah.
And then when you finally did kind of say, okay, I can't deny what's happening right here, and I have to accept this as reality. I mean, did that change any of your philosophies?
So so yeah, I spent 20 years in the Air Force. My trade, air traffic control, which I did up until last year. So I had 34 years total of air traffic control. So, type A personality, you know,
Hmm.
everything's like black and white, if you will.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which, because I always ask, why didn't this ability appear in my younger days? And I look back now and I said, there's no way I would have been able to handle that during my time in the Air Force. None. So I believe, everything happens for a reason when it's
Hmm.
supposed to. Um, so again, it really just all evolved about, my story of how this developed. And the thing too, going through the kidney transplant, going through something like that changes your perspective on literally everything.
Right.
If the person you see now is not the uptight a-hole that I was for my military time, it was just that's the way it was.
Sure.
But I let a lot of that stuff go. I'm like, I just got a second chance to live. I'm not going to get
Mhm.
upset over the stupid things in the
Sure.
little things. And then when these abilities presented, I'm like, I'm 45. I don't care what other people think. I know my truth. I know what's happening.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Thankfully, I had a family that just supported me 100%. Friends too. I don't know if I'm a rare case, but I have literally met hardly any resistance the whole time I've been doing this.
That's awesome.
And I think maybe it's just because, and I've had people comment before that you just look like a normal guy. I'm like, well, what did you expect me to look like? you know we're we're human. This is a part of who we are. It doesn't matter. So I hope that answers it. But I mean, my philosophy, yes, has slowly progressively changed over the years the longer I work with my abilities. And things that I learned in the beginning, I sit and reflect on, and it's like, okay, I changed my perspective on this and that. And I kind of have my own way. I'm kind of like one of those rebels that kind of just like to blaze my own path and figure things
Hmm.
out for myself a lot.
Hmm.
What makes sense to me, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting what you said, and I totally agree with that. It's so amazing to me to look at pictures and videos of myself in the past, because it's like I know that it's the same person in some sense, but like it's so not the same person in
Yeah.
so many senses. You know what I mean? Um, which is great. And you also mentioned something that I think is, for me, I'm not a big fan of like buzzwords and terminology, right? So even the
Me
word,
either.
the spiritual journey, right? Like to me, like I kind of cringe when I say it, but um I think that for me, the biggest advantage and the biggest thing that I can describe is what you just said, like, the person that you were before would have kind of been angry in this. And I think Arnie, Send From Within, who's watching us, Arnie made a post about an experience that he had with a package, and it wasn't on his doorstep. And 5 years ago, that he would have been cursing and screaming and like trying to figure out what goes on. And I remember that, even as simple as being in a car and somebody cuts you off.
Oh yeah.
That's such a great example, because everybody has experienced that, and everybody has I think most people have probably experienced it to the point where you're going to work, somebody cuts you off, you get pissed, you're holding on to that energy, and you get into
Oh
work
yeah.
and you're like telling somebody, this guy cut me off, and you've now got that energy in your hand, and you're like, oh, look at this energy, you know what I mean? And it's just so funny. And I love recognizing that and being like, wow, like, I don't have to let situations take my energy, right? Or even inject energy into me that I don't want,
Right.
because I'm aware of it, and it's much easier to kind of avoid that state of being, right?
That's a work in progress for me still, because there's times where I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
but I'm human.
Yeah,
So
you know what? I'm human too. I'm human too, and I certainly don't pretend to be perfect, but I just love that, something about myself that I can be proud of is that ability to respond to situations and
yes.
handle them for the most part.
Yep.
Wow. I don't know why I'm coughing so much tonight. Okay, so the military thing, I think for me, and the skeptic thing is really fascinating, because and I think we were talking about this too, when you experience certain things that you can't deny, then all of a sudden everything's like, okay, wait, I didn't believe this, but now I know it to be true, right? So it's
Yeah.
like I can't deny it, and I can't even continue that disbelief of it, right? And so you've let it go. So tell us how that is now. So in other words, you've had these revelations, you had to kind of let it in and not deny it,
Yeah.
and now you are a psychic medium. Now you see people, you read. What is? Oh, I wanted to ask you this. What is an evidential medium?
I got to tell you that title was dubbed upon me by my first teacher, and I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I'm like, okay, sure. And then later learned what it meant after I adopted it. I'm like, oh my God, I just put a whole lot of pressure on myself. And to me, I am not a big labels person. I believe that we're all the same. We have these abilities. A medium's a medium. We may have different ways of receiving and delivering messages, but I believe we all have the same, ability or potential ability to do this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I just dig deep for the evidence. I learned early on that getting a no from somebody is not the end of the world, because I want to dig deep, and it's them on the other side that have to prove it to their loved one. I'm just a middleman. I
right.
just open up and, through development have just opened up to just, I give them the floor. Whatever comes through, it's from them.
Mm-hmm,
And I always say that if we can step aside and allow us ourselves to step aside, they'll make us look like geniuses,
mm-hmm,
but we get in our own way.
right.
Um, but the skepticism part, when I first started, I had to get that validation from a sitter, and that happened during the first class. And there's nothing like that feeling the first time that you actually get to sit with somebody you don't know,
Mm-hmm,
whether it's in a class or whatever. You bring through some information and they go, yes, I understand that, it makes sense. And that first moment is like, oh my God, this is real.
mm-hmm,
How would I know that?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it just goes from there, and you slowly learn to build that trust with spirit. Um, and then from there, it's just continual to just, okay, I'm on board. I'm going to do my best to give you a voice, and
Yeah.
I'll do my best to stay out of your way.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
amazing. I can imagine. And Stasia says, I love your story. My son is in the military and doesn't want to hear anything about my spiritual journey.
I can
Um,
relate.
yeah. And again, that's what's so great about your story is, and I guess what buys kind of like a credibility, with people who may normally be skeptical. They may say, wait a second, this guy, I can trust this guy. He's not going to lie. You know what I mean? Which is pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. So You said something I wanted to hit on. You said, so I personally,
Mhm.
my story is I'm certainly aware, yes, that everybody has these abilities, right?
Right.
I'm certainly very, very connected to my own connection to source, right? Which doesn't necessarily involve readings and things like that.
Right.
Um, but uh, oh my God, my brain tonight, Michael.
That was me, I think on Monday. I
Oh
was,
my
like,
God. I'm like, oh, I
scattered.
want to ask him this. Oh, I want to ask him that. And then it comes into my brain, and then I see the comments going.
I'm the
I
same way. My
think
ADD
I
kicks in.
think
I'm like, "Oh, squirrel."
yeah, I think I'm losing it tonight. Um, let me back up. All right. So you said the validation from
Yeah.
a sitter was really that moment that you're like, oh my God, this is real.
Yeah.
And that was actually what triggered. So I was saying that I don't really have a specific thing that I do with other people, right? Other than this right here,
Right.
right? Which is share space and do all that. But I think I've certainly had moments where I've had experiences that I can't deny are real. And I also don't usually take a psychic development class, but I've started doing that through meeting so many people in the community and then
Yeah.
kind of wanting to barter, right? And I'll do this for you, and let me take your class,
Yeah.
and so the class was that I took was learning how to read Akashic records,
Oh, okay.
and which was amazingly fascinating. And I've met so many amazing people and who I love to get read by.
Yeah.
But part of the class was you had to practice. You had to read the Akashic records. You had to go through, the prayers and open the records and read for people. And I read for a few people who had that exact reaction, like, oh yeah, I totally understand what you're talking about. Like you're on the money.
Yeah.
And like I didn't even really know what I was saying, right? I was just kind of bringing through information, saying I see this, I see that, and it was just amazing. So that didn't inspire me necessarily to say, okay, I'm going to be a psychic medium. It just felt great, and it was like validation to me. I think you mentioned also kind of like all psychic mediums are a little bit different, but it's all the same thing, right? So
Yeah.
even reading the Akashic records and astrology and channeling and all of these different metaphysical gifts for me
Mhm.
represent that's how that person, that aspect of source is connecting with source and expressing it to the rest of the puzzle pieces
Yeah.
out here,
Yeah.
so again, for me, this is my puzzle piece. I'm here to bring you to the listeners out there who are talking, who are listening and watching, and also get to know you and connect with you.
No, and it's a great platform. I mean, I'm very grateful, for you, and other people who do this, that get this out into the mainstream, and it's becoming more of a norm now. It's
mm,
it's 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 definitely more acceptable now than it was 20 years ago.
yeah.
Back then you were really hidden. Now it's like there's more people stepping up and saying, "I want to share, I want to talk to somebody. Thanks for giving us this platform where we can share this." Where other people
Totally.
think we're nuts, we have this common bond now. I have this safe space where we can talk.
Totally, and that's what I love about what Debbie Romero is doing, and so happy to meet so many of the people in that community. I'm probably gonna have a bunch of them on the show. One of the things I've actually been wanting to do is kind of do like a forum, right, where you can go live and you can say, hey, if you have a gift and you want to come on, and with StreamYard you can have 5-10 people on it at the same time.
Yeah.
Now that's a little rough to manage, but I love the idea of the forum. I love the idea of bringing this to the public and having this conversation, because I can have this conversation with you. We can be live. Whoever's supposed to receive it will receive it, but I can't necessarily go into work tomorrow and be like, I was talking to the psychic medium and this happened and that happened, without some people being like, huh? Um, but even that's changing, which I'm really grateful for. I
Yeah.
do talk about it at work. They know what I do, and nobody looks at me funny. You know what I mean? And I think that's great, because as much as we're being shown in the news that people are looking at each other funny because they're different than them, right? And there's all this
Yeah.
divisiveness, the experience that I'm having is totally opposite. You know what I mean? I'm having an experience where it's like I'm just being myself, and people are connecting, and I don't feel that divisiveness, right? And
No.
I don't feel the hopelessness that I see, other people out there feeling, that are looking at the world and not looking within. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean, there's so much peace when you can finally get to that point and just like, the world is what it is, and you can have your own little experience, tuning out the noise,
Mhm, mhm.
and that's me. I mean, the perfect day for me is getting on my motorcycle and just going out in the middle of nowhere, just being by myself, and that's like my meditation. It's like
Yeah, that
just
sounds awesome. Yeah, for sure. I can totally relate to that. And that, not that's I just kind of stepped into that, right? I brought that up when I said people aren't looking within. I think that's an important conversation. I think so many people are affected so much by the outside world, and trying to deal with the outside world, and really, for me, it's like I have absolutely zero control of any of that.
yeah,
The only thing that I have, what's the word I'm looking for? Accord. The only thing I have control over is my own reaction to that world
yeah,
outside. You know what I mean? And the more I can make that positive and reflect that positivity out there, I feel like the more that comes back to me, the less adverse situations I find myself in, because I am a positive person, right?
yeah,
I try to be non-judgmental towards other people. Again, these are like, I feel like I've got these little philosophies, right, that help me navigate my day with a big smile on my face.
yeah,
And then that smile becomes a ripple, that somebody else who might be having a bad day is like, oh, that guy smiled at me, and they feel good, and then that has its ripples, which is great. So, and Helen says, I haven't noticed more people looking at me funny now versus before. People always looked at me funny. Well, you're a funny woman, Helen. You're That was funny. That was that was innately like a funny joke. Um, so awesome. So what are you doing now? Like, so how's the psychic business? You know what I mean? Like, what?
um,
How do you do your readings? I saw you did live online. Tell us a little bit about that.
yeah. So I do pretty much everything. I do live group readings. I do readings, group events through Zoom. I do a lot of Facebook lives. I actually took a few months off, and I'm just now getting back into doing them.
Mhm.
But right now, I try to. My schedule is like every second and fourth Sunday of the month at 7 p.m. I go live on my Facebook page and my YouTube channel. And that I just do. It's kind of like this. We just kind of talk, we converse back and forth. Somebody has questions, I'll answer them. I'll do some readings. I don't have an agenda. I just kind of go live and we just see what happens. But yeah, I do private readings right now. Usually it's over Zoom or phone. I used to have an office, but it's kind of one of these towns where it's still very conservative. So people are, it was kind of hard to maintain an office because I wasn't getting that many in person.
Mhm, mhm.
But that's starting to slowly change. So yeah,
Great.
and I do have a part-time job. I took a year off. I retired from the air traffic thing last April.
Mhm.
Took a year off and just kinda just did whatever. And I think me and my wife were like, decided I needed to do something at least part-time. And I did. I needed something to keep me normal, if you will. I
Yeah.
wanted a normal job. I still work at the airport, funny enough, but now I do like I'm living my dream. I am mowing lawns for a living.
Oh,
I've
wow.
joked about that for years. I'm like, man, my dream job is mowing a lawn. And now I take care of the airfield environment
Oh,
and
wow.
light maintenance kind of stuff like that. I'm like, very, compared to air traffic control, the stress level is down almost 90%.
I
So
can imagine. I can totally imagine. I want to put up your website there where people can actually see where to get your live, your YouTube page, and your Facebook is connected over there, and also to connect if they want a one-on-one reading.
yeah,
Um, Something interesting that's been happening, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how to do this, is the idea of using this platform to do readings and have people share their gifts, whatever
yeah.
that might be. You said you do readings over Zoom. Do you do group readings over Zoom?
Yeah, it's kind of like just yeah, it's just a virtual gallery reading, like you would see with John Edward when he did Crossing Over. It's the
Hmm.
same
Hmm.
same thing, except you're in the comfort of your own home, and
Right.
you know, uh,
Would you be interested if I opened up the chat for anybody to ask a question they might have, or?
yeah, we can do questions. I probably don't want to do any readings tonight. I've been up since 2:30 in the morning. I just one of those nights where I couldn't sleep.
Sure.
Um, and the thing is too, it's funny because I used to be very open to doing readings during the talk shows. Now, if it's a complete like I know that's what we're gonna do, it's like okay, I can jump in and prepare for it. But I mean, if something comes through, I'll definitely start talking about it.
Well,
Um,
I've just figured I'd ask
oh
because
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's been happening a lot, and so I'm thinking about putting a show together. I've been working with this woman, Wendy Gale, who channels Metatron, and that has been just such an amazing experience. And I actually asked Metatron um, if he'd be willing to, do a live show. So we're going to do once a month, which I'm excited about. But I feel like different healers have said, "Hey,
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
let's do an episode of that." So
Yeah.
I'm thinking of doing a show that's just, healing, holding space for the healers somehow.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll get
so,
Debbie to join, and we can do Deb and I can work together and do readings.
oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
We
So tell me about that. Have you done that?
oh my
Like,
god, I'm an instigator, I'll tell you that. So I have this thing where I just have no fear about doing things that make me very uncomfortable. I started doing Facebook Lives like years ago. And what I started doing is I would start dragging my friends on with me because they
mhm,
had this apprehension. I'm like, you just got to do it. It's so much fun. Once you do one, it's like you'll realize it's not as fearful as you think. So
mhm.
subconsciously, I started doing this thing, and like people have just giving me feedback, like thanking me, like, "Thank you for dragging me on there and showing me that it's not as scary as, they thought it was."
That's great.
Um,
Yeah, that's like a
it's
validation for them, right?
yeah, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really a lot of fun.
So
Um,
what is that experience like when you're with somebody else who's also tuning into those frequencies and talking to the same entities or same energy at the same time? What is that like? That's
yeah, double linking is what it's called. So if you have 2 mediums, a lot of times I work with my friend Jennifer. We've worked together now for 4 years, and usually during when we had a show, either her or I would just start communicating. We'd open up and, we kind of let spirit led, so whoever steps forward, we'd start working with that person.
mhm, mhm.
But what usually would happen was, I'd give some information and I would pause a bit and I'm like, Jennifer, you got anything? And she's linked into the same person because there's no boundaries in the spirit world like there are physical. So they can be in multiple locations at once.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
So she would pick up some aspects about the person. So we'd be just sharing information about the person we got with the
Wow.
person that's connected to in the group. And it just kind of flows,
Mhm,
sometimes it's psychic reading, sometimes it's mediumship. It's kind
mhm.
of just we go with it, you know.
It's so cool.
So
I'm so fascinated by that because, I mean, again, I'm just really in tune with energy, and to feel like, two people can tune into that same energy and get messages to a person, like I just love seeing that. And I witnessed that recently. I went to a reading. Oh my goodness, I forget what the name of Teresa was the musical medium. The other medium, Janice, my girlfriend's, she was like a mentor for my girlfriend. But they started doing that thing, And I also have a friend, Steve Interante. I don't know if you know him. You're
Mm-mm.
are you located on Long Island, by the way? I just had that question. Are
No,
you
I'm originally from New York, and then after the Air Force, I retired up here in North Dakota,
North
where
Dakota?
most people don't even know where North Dakota is. I know I didn't. I remember when I got my assignment up here, I'm like, "Is that overseas somewhere? Where's North Dakota?"
Oh, that's so funny.
So, yeah, I'm in the middle of, nowhere.
That's really funny. So what remind me what I was asking you now? I got
We were just
distracted.
talking about the double linking and how we work together,
Right,
doing a
okay.
live, and
Wow, if I didn't have you, I don't know where I'd be tonight.
I'm
Um,
surprised I'm remembering because usually my brain is scattered.
so what I was gonna say is, my friend Steven Durante, who is, he's a hypnotist, he's a guided meditation, um, he does sound healing. He's just such an amazing guy. He was doing, past life regressions.
I had one of those once.
Yeah, yeah, and that's amazing, and what I found interesting was he started to do past life regressions to 2 people at the same time,
Wow.
and then he would have them, or they would eventually meet in whatever realm, like, because when you're doing a past life, it's almost like you're under hypnosis and you're describing what you see, and
Yep.
some of the stories that came out of what he was doing was just so phenomenal, right? Two human beings actually interacting with each other on an astral realm,
Yeah.
and then coming back to talk about it like that. That's just so fascinating to me. I love all of the amazing advancements that are happening in the human uh, energy, where people are connecting to these fascinating things. um,
Yeah, we're just realizing that, okay, this is just the vehicle. I look at the human body as a vehicle, a car.
mhm,
Our soul is what sparks this alive, just as like when you get in your car, the inanimate object comes to life when you're controlling it.
mhm.
I believe that's how the spirit is animating our
Oh,
physical
interesting.
body. That's how I've always looked at it. Because when I try to describe passing, or at least what I've researched and what spirit has told me, it's kind of like, people will talk about they feel guilty about XYZ, about getting rid of people's possessions. And I'm like, this is the way spirit has explained it to me or gave me the thought or feeling about it. It's like, you have this jacket, all right? This jacket you've worn for 10, 20 years. It's become old, faded. It's time to get a new one. When you take that jacket off and give it away, do whatever you do with it, do you have any attachment to that jacket? Most likely no. That's
Mhm.
how they describe the body. It's like once they're out, they don't care. They don't
Right,
care what happens to their body or what happens to their earthly possessions,
right.
so
Sure,
that's
of
kind of
course.
how I envision things.
No, I love that that metaphor of the driver driving the car, your soul driving your body, and also like the value of that as a material object, right?
Yeah.
It's just something you're using
Yep.
for a purpose for a while.
Yep, I got a '69 model that I had to start getting replacement parts at 40, so
That's hysterical. Tim is asking, are you anywhere near Deadwood? So Tim,
I love Deadwood. I go to Deadwood a lot. I got friends down in Rapid City, but I'm about, 5 hours north. Yeah, it's about a 5-hour
that's not
drive.
super close, but you know where it is, and Tim
Oh,
knows
yeah.
where North Dakota is.
Oh, man, we got stuck in a snowstorm
Oh,
down in
and
Deadwood in February, so
he said
it
he said, "Wait, that's in South Dakota."
yeah, yeah, Deadwood, South Dakota.
So, I guess when you said it was 5 hours, you were 5 hours north, he realizes.
Yeah,
Uh, and Helen says, "Perception, you see it as advancement. I've always seen it as reconnecting to how humans were back in the beginning of societies." Yeah, and I think that's very interesting too. Something that I'm fascinated with is kind of learning about different ancient rituals and philosophies and just stories about how humans existed, that were very different than how we're existing. Stories about Atlantis, stories about the Anunnaki, different um, interpretations
yeah.
of infinite possibilities.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? And
yeah.
I love that. I love being in this world, but not of it.
Yep,
Um,
this is just a temporary getaway, from our true existence, I believe. I
Yeah.
believe this is a school. We come here to learn, and I've heard this is the roughest place a spirit can go because you learn the quickest. And there's,
I have heard that too, that
you
like it's
know,
like being a human
we're
is
brave for being here. That's
yeah,
what.
yeah, yeah. And I've also heard that we very specifically chose it.
Yeah, and I think I'm hearing like a double dog dare or something. They're like, "I bet you won't go again."
A
I bet I
double
will. And then
dog
I go, and
dare.
they're like, "We got him. He did it again."
That's hysterical. That's totally hysterical. And Debbie saying, yes, brave. Yeah, I it's been a while, and my perception obviously changes, right? All the time. You never stand in the same river twice,
Right.
right? Um, but I love where I'm at and my perceptions because, again, probably even though 2 years ago, I had been on this spiritual journey, for a while now.
Yeah.
But even 2 years ago, I still was receiving fear, right? I still was looking at the world around me and like wondering like what the hell's going to happen. This does not look good, you know what I mean? And all
Yeah.
of those things, which I could say now, and I could be like, okay, I get why I'm saying that, but isn't saying that kind of believing that's what's going to happen, right? And it's like, you the idea that we create our own reality with our thoughts and our words, that makes the most sense to me. So,
I have a living example of that, and it was almost subconscious. So when I went through the kidney transplant, now with any transplant, the rejection can happen anytime. I mean, that's it, one day to whenever. And I remember, and this is before I knew all this was going on. I remember talking to my transplanted kidney, who, by the way, was donated by my buddy in the Air Force, who's still alive. We're still connected and all that good
so
stuff.
cool.
But I remember talking to it and almost like welcoming it to my body. And I remember I was like telling my body, like, you're not allowed to get sick,
Mhm,
because I always had this thought, because of what my brothers went through,
mhm,
that they lower your immune system so the kidney or transplanted organ doesn't resist or reject.
mhm, mhm.
I just always had this thought, I'm not going to get sick. I'm not going to get sick. And I'm knocking on wood now.
Yeah.
I have literally, I think I've had one minor cold in the last 14 years. If
Wow.
December will be 14 years anniversary of my transplant. So I do believe that your thoughts have a direct effect on how your body reacts.
Yes,
Um,
1,000,000%. I
so,
definitely.
I mean, I don't know why I felt like sharing that, but it just came to
No,
mind.
yeah, well, I subscribe to that too. I feel like, again, I feel like maybe that's I see Helen says she still maintains that she was tricked.
Oh, me too. Me too. I'm
Thank
like,
you.
dang it, they got me.
But what I was going to say was, I feel like my gift isn't necessarily like metaphysical, but more philosophical, right? And just
Yeah.
the idea of little tidbits of how to handle things that are so simple, that I find are simple, that people don't necessarily think of. And then you say it out loud, and they're like, oh, wow. Like, I didn't have to carry that energy of that guy cutting me off around all
Yeah.
day. You're right. You know what I mean? And it's great to see those ripples happen, just because you're who you are.
Yeah.
And when I was talking about seeing my reflection in you, I'm imagining that's how you feel too, like just from existing and then hearing stories about, somebody you might have affected, like you get filled with gratitude, like
Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad I'm me,
Every time I go to the bathroom, I thank my buddy Stan. I'm like, dude, thanks, man.
right.
If it wasn't for
Exactly.
you, I wouldn't be here. And that was another thing, again, the fear going into something like that is unless you go through it, you'll never really truly appreciate the experience.
Mhm.
It's going to sound odd, but it was a completely positive experience for me the whole way through. It's weird,
Oh yeah.
but it's like every day since the transplant, no matter the good, perceived good or bad, it's like, I'm just happy I'm still here to be able to experience it. Because by all means, I should be taking a dirt nap. I should have taken a dirt nap 14 years ago. So
Yeah.
here I am. I'm still
Yeah.
here to annoy people.
Well, I could imagine in that situation, certainly facing your mortality, you know, definitely changes your perception of
Oh,
things,
yeah.
and when you get through it, I'm sure fills you with gratitude, I had an experience. Fortunately, it wasn't that kind of I did face my mortality, right? I was in the hospital. I had double pneumonia,
Oh man.
and there was a moment where I could not breathe. I just couldn't draw a breath in, and it was a short moment, but it was a slow motion moment, right? All the doctors rushed in. They rushed my brother and my mother out of the room. um I thought I was going to die. It was like, okay. It was scary for a moment, but I definitely know that facing your mortality, on the other side of that, you're filled with gratitude,
Oh yeah.
and you don't sweat the small stuff so much anymore. You know
No.
what I mean? It's just like, getting annoyed at people, you know, that's a choice. That's a
Yes.
choice. And it's so funny because it's like, when you're on the other side, you could say, oh wow, I remember when I would have chose to get annoyed at you, but you just smile and you're just like, sorry, I'm not really annoyed.
Yeah.
you
It's
know
like it's not
you
worth
didn't
getting
you
annoyed with.
didn't win. Yeah, you didn't win.
Yep. No.
That's great, Michael. You're so much fun to talk to.
Same. This is great.
Yeah. So I guess I asked you what you're doing now.
Yeah.
You're currently like, uh, full-time psychic medium, I guess you would say, part-time,
Yeah,
full-time.
yeah, it's part-time. I mean, I just do it alongside of my part-time job, and to me, it just gives me the balance. And I found that when I was doing this just all by itself, it was just things weren't right. It was like I needed something else to just I want to do something normal. And again, like I said earlier, just I had to have that outlet of at least a few days a week where I'm just like not thinking about this. I'm just doing I'm fixing this or mowing the lawn or
Mhm.
whatever. It's like and it just gives me that balance. So I find for me, as far as right now in this moment, that's where I'm happiest is when I can just, I can schedule a few days a week to do readings
Mhm.
and I'm content with that, and if I feel like squeezing in more, I will. And I'm perfectly happy doing my lives and just chatting with people and just,
Right.
sharing my philosophies on life.
Oh, totally, totally. Well, I appreciate you coming here and sharing your philosophy. It's also, you said you think it may sound odd, but it doesn't, because I mean, I remember when I was younger, things were different, but like mowing the lawn, that is a moment to really go inside, right? You could put on
Yeah.
the headphones, you can just you could just be with yourself,
Yeah.
and I can remember, I mean, I was younger, and I would probably like smoke a joint and then go mow the lawn,
I
but
remember those days.
but I would but putting the headphones on and mowing the lawn is being in the moment, right? You're just
Yeah.
connecting, you're just with yourself, you're with your thoughts, you're not even necessarily thinking. You're like, okay, I know I got to push this thing along and follow the lines that I'm making and this and that, but there's not a lot of thought that needs to be put into it, and you really are like just in with yourself.
I used to say, like, I used to iron my own uniforms when I was in the military. I didn't take them to the dry cleaner, and I didn't realize back then, but it was just that 5, 10 minutes of just zoning out and just doing something mundane, and that's meditation. People, they make it so difficult. I'm like, meditation doesn't have to be sitting in a chair with your eyes closed, trying to, convince your brain to stop talking. Go do something, just whatever, mundane, just something that takes your mind off what's
Totally.
going on around you, and there you are.
Totally. What's up, Jesse Hal? I see Jesse Hal out there. Yeah, I think you just hit it on the head. I think it's like you got two different schools of thought. One is, I can't meditate, I don't know how to do it, I can't stop my brain. And the other one is realizing that things like ironing your pants are opportunities to meditate.
Yeah,
Riding your motorcycle, you know what I mean, just
yeah,
doing things that allow you to be with you for the moment and just connect with yourself. That's a form of meditation, and
yeah,
there's just nothing like it. um I mean, I'm 57 years old, and I think for the past 10 years I've been able to say I am more happy and confident with who I am than I've ever been in my life.
yeah,
And it's not like I'm some like millionaire doing amazing things out there, but in my own way, I am a millionaire doing amazing things right here with you. I'm rich with love, and for myself and for you and for everybody who's listening, and I'm doing amazing things by just having this conversation.
Yeah, it's just appreciating what you have in your life. I always said, and I said this from a young age, as long as I had a roof over my head, we have food and maybe a little extra to do some hobbies, I'm happy. And that's been my life. And again, I think that was intention putting it out in the universe years ago, is like I'm a very simple person, and
Mhm.
it doesn't take much for me to just be content as long as my brain is occupied. But
Right.
it's just appreciating what you have, not worrying about what you don't,
Right.
and
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Helen saying, I wonder if hyperfocus is a form of meditation. I think 1,000,000%. Helen makes jewelry. So,
Oh yeah.
when she's doing that and she's hyper focused on that, she is in that moment,
Yeah.
100% in that moment. Like nothing else exists outside of that, her right there doing what she's doing. And that's, I think, where we all find ourselves and we figure out who we are
Yeah.
and what feels good, and all of that other stuff. So we got a couple of minutes left. Tell me a little bit more about what you like to do outside of psychic mediumship. So in other words, I guess what I'm asking is this, because I feel like these are forms of connecting to source. Do you
Yeah.
play music? Do you do art? Do you?
Funny enough, so I have like the drum set I've always wanted when I was 8 years old in my basement, which is like huge. So
Neil Peart.
I've yeah, I've played drums since, yeah, I think it was 8th grade.
Mhm,
So that's been a constant through my life, which again was a form of meditation. I just go in there and beat the snot out of my drums for an hour and I felt terrific.
mhm.
Um, I have several guitars that I am trying to learn. I'm not giving up. They sit there on the rack and I think they're art. So that's why I buy them. I got an addiction to motorcycles. I think I've had a different bike every summer
Oh
for the
wow.
last several years, which is I need an intervention with that. So I'll admit that. But I don't have too many vices. But yeah, the bike, music, just hanging out. Me and my wife just doing whatever. We're both the same to where we don't need a lot to occupy us. We just go do whatever. So I'm
Right.
a pretty boring person, I should say. But
Well, I don't find any of that boring. I think that sounds pretty happy to me. That sounds, like, do you customize your motorcycles, or you just
I
ride them?
tried not to, because there's an addiction to, you think I need to buy this accessory and that, and I'm trying to wean off of that. I just gotta wean off of just buying a different bike and just be content with the one I have. Actually, the 2 I have right now. So
Nice, nice. See, and other people agree. Courtney says it sounds like the life. Absolutely beautiful. Debbie says, yeah, it's interesting, right? You had to live this much life to get to this point. Sometimes I feel like that, like, why did it take so long? But then I'm like grateful. I'm like, okay, because I had to do this, I had to do this. You look back on your life. I think you said this, I think, in your bio, kind of seeing the different things that happened to you and why. And it all made sense,
oh,
right?
yeah, it all made sense. It lined me up for what I'm doing now. And I mean, all those books that I read on mediumship over the years, to me, that was like, you know, what, 15 years of the best, informal education.
Mhm,
Because when this kicked off, I had a clue of what was, at least I had an idea of what was happening, and just all those life experiences with the losses of my siblings and just my health. It just put me in a position to where I can empathize on a deep level what people are going through. I'm
mhm,
never going to understand completely what somebody else is dealing with. None of us can, but I have an idea of what they're facing. And I remember my first couple readings for me before I was a medium, how much comfort that gave. And that, I have to say, I'll never forget that, because that's why I do this work. I think that everybody does this has to have a strong, why do you do this? And for me, it's like, I know the comfort it gave me. It gave me comfort knowing that if I didn't survive, that there's something more beyond this.
mhm, mhm,
That by itself was huge. But then getting those messages from my siblings, was even more. So it's like, I know why I'm doing this for people. I want them to understand that, it's hard. We're never going to get over the loss. We never should get over the loss, but they're not truly gone. Yes, they're not here in the physical world. We have to live with that,
mhm.
but it's a comfort knowing that they're somewhere and we are going to see them again.
Mhm. That's one thing that I got to say is probably one of my favorite things about psychic mediums and going to watch psychic mediums and what they do is the help that they give people who are grieving, you know, and I can say probably that I've never once gone to a reading, a group reading and watched it. I film a lot, so I'm a video guy, right? So I
Mhm.
film a lot. I filmed a lot with Christopher Allen, but never once have I experienced it without getting really emotional. You know what I mean?
You
Because
can't help but get caught up in the energy of it. I mean, and that's the thing, when you do a live event in person, it's a lot different than like the Zoom because everybody's in their own space. But when you're there
Mhm,
and you see and feel the emotions of the other people, I mean,
mhm,
I'm in awe. I mean, I'm just I'm in as much shock as they are when stuff comes through and I'm like, it connects. I'm like,
mhm,
my normal reaction is like, are you kidding me? You understand this? They're like,
right.
and I'm like, holy crap.
And then as an empath, not only you're like, okay, I got it right, but now you feel it. Now you're actually
Oh my God,
experiencing.
my last one I don't cry often, and there was one that I was like, "I'm not crying." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Nope, I'm not crying."
yeah,
But it was just such an impactful moment. It was like, it just reminds me, again, why I put myself through what I do to do this
sure,
work. I
sure.
I have yet to meet a medium that hasn't said this has been an easy journey.
You know what? And I gotta say, it is absolutely the best kind of crying, and when it's happening, that's what it feels like. It does not feel sad. It feels healing. It feels it feels right. It feels like, oh my God, this is what's supposed to be happening right now. This vibration is is what's supposed to be happening right now. I just want to acknowledge Courtney Lopez had commented when we were talking about customizing the motorcycles. My high school boyfriend, I guess his philosophy was I can make it
You make
better.
it better. Yeah,
And
yeah.
she
Oh,
says,
yeah. It's a sickness with dudes and their bikes. It's like, I
yeah,
gotta make it better. It's
she
gotta be
said,
faster.
imagine Lamborghini doors on a Ford Probe.
Oh my God.
Uh, which I'm imagining a dude who just needed to do that, just to do
I
it.
can I can relate 100%.
Totally, totally. Uh, Mike Egan is out there saying, "Hey, what's up, Mike Egan? I see you. Just want to acknowledge some people in the audience." And Tim says, after 2 strokes, nerve damage, and 2 surgery, he finally got the clearance to start playing guitar again for the first time in 5 years. Nice,
Awesome.
nice, Tim. Tim is an amazing warrior. He's been on the show before. As he said, 2 strokes, nerve damage, much, much more adversity than that, and just like
You
it's
keep
so
plugging
great.
along.
Yeah, it's so great that people who I feel have been through so much are some of the happiest people that I know because they're like, "Oh, I've been down to the bottom and, now I know that I'm happy." So, it's so great.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so great to see
It's
that.
like, you know, everybody's gone through something and, you know, just being able to get past it and keep moving forward is a huge accomplishment.
Totally.
So, props to anybody, everybody, that you're still here.
And then using that knowledge in other ways, right? In knowing, in not being judgmental, right? In
Yeah.
seeing other people and being like, okay, I don't know your story, so I'm just going to accept that your perception was your story was supposed to happen to you for you to experience it and tell me about it.
Yeah. And
Uh,
inspire somebody else to keep
exactly,
going. Don't give
exactly,
up.
which is great. Um, Mike, like I said, I'm enjoying talking to you, but we actually flew through the hour. We're
Oh my
actually we're,
goodness.
we're over the hour, which is fine. There's no clock out or bell here. We can go as long as we want. But I do want to ask you, because I'm imagining you probably have some great words of wisdom or encouragement for anybody who's listening. I usually ask my guests to share something
Yeah.
like that.
And again, it's just everything I've been through. The biggest thing I find is, you can't sweat the small stuff. It's not that big a deal. It really is not. It may seem like, insurmountable at the time, but it's like, it's just weird how we face these things. Then we look back and go, it wasn't as bad as my mind made it think it was going to be.
Mhm.
So I would just say you got to take things in stride, and just, I don't know, just look at things from a different perspective. Don't
Totally.
feel you're stuck. I think when people, and this is common, you feel you're stuck, I think that's a moment for you to step back and reflect on what's going on.
Mhm.
Why do I feel like this?
Mhm.
And you're gonna come to that answer, and that's your intuition. Again, spirit's not gonna go ABC and you're out of this. They're gonna give you some thoughts. These thoughts will enter your mind, and you're like, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yep.
Wow, that wasn't such a big deal. It's just these moments of inspiration that's our guides, that's our friends and family on the other side going, hey,
Totally.
especially to me, hey, dipstick, not that big a deal, dude. You've been through worse.
Totally. No, that's totally funny. And I'm gonna give a shout out to Tim, who's a triumphant warrior and survivor, and now I'm seeing Ninja Kitty, also two of the people who have been with me the longest. They've been watching since day one. Ninja Kitty said I had double hip replacement, 3 back surgeries, and a knee replacement in November, and I'm running a 5K next month, and I started bowling again.
Holy moly. I couldn't
What
run 5K right now if I tried.
Right? I love this. I love the triumph in this group. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys so much for bringing your positivity. Mike, thank you for bringing your positivity and your story. It's an awesome story. Um, People can find you. Your website's down there at the bottom. If anyone resonated with Mike, which I'm sure we had some wonderful resonation happening, we always do. Meet with Mike. That's an interesting thing that I just brought up. One of the things that happened to me, one of my superpowers, right, my metaphysical gifts, is connecting other people.
Yeah.
Throughout my life, I have always brought 2 people together, and then like the next 3 days later, it's like, oh, we're working on this, or we're doing this, and I've connected so many people just inadvertently, just through vibration. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I love it.
Yeah. We definitely attract our
Your vibe
vibe.
attracts your tribe
There
for
you go.
sure. We say that here all the time.
No,
Well, I'm going to put you in the back. I'm going to say goodnight to you and thank you again. And
thank you.
we'll definitely
And
have you
thanks to
back.
everybody for listening to me run my mouth.
Yeah,
I
no,
can babble with the best of them.
you were great. We had a lot of people saying great show. Have a great night. Excuse me. I'm going to put you in the back. Thanks for
Okay.
coming. And I'm just going to say goodbye, but don't go anywhere because I want
Okay.
to have a good one. Oh, guys. Wow. Amazing, right? It's just the universe delivered Michael to me today because I didn't know what I was going to do. Debbie and the universe and everybody who's connected to the show. It happened. Tim, great episode. I love you, brother. I love you. Another amazing show. Thank you. Thanks for the discussion. Oh, I love it. Heading to the East Coast. Awesome. I love that. And oh no, that was Mike Egan who said heading to the East Coast. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate that. For anyone who's here and new, if you haven't already and you liked what you saw, please subscribe. Please comment in the comments, not necessarily in the chat, because that helps the algorithm recognize great conversations that people are interested in and helps me to grow, and helps you to grow, I guess, right? If you express appreciation for something, that's gratitude, and you're going to grow from it. So I'm grateful for your gratitude, and I'm just grateful for you guys being here. Next week, I do have, I think Michael is actually talking about Jennifer, his friend Jennifer. I think he was talking about Jennifer Rose, who is going to be on next week. Let me just double check here. Medium Jennifer Rose. Yes, she's coming on next week. So thank you guys for being here. Please come back next week for that conversation with Jennifer Rose, and I will see you next week. Peace.